Hello and welcome to Trying Times. My name is Carmen, and if you're new here, then I just want to extend an extra special welcome for you. What that looks like is it's a regular welcome, but it's a little bit nicer. It's a little more special just because it's your first time here. Or maybe your first few times here. I don't know if you've listened before. But if this is your first time here, thank you so much for taking the time out to listen and share some of your time with me. I really appreciate that. If you have listened before and you're returning, thank you so much for being here, for being such a great friend. I really, really appreciate you. And again, I'm just very happy to have you here spending some time with me. So, yeah, thank you so much. This episode's a little different from what I normally do because it's my birthday. And I'm so excited. Well, when I'm recording this, firstly, it's not my birthday, but when this episode goes live, it is my birthday. And I'm just so stoked. I get really excited every year when it comes to just birthdays in general for those around me. But I get very excited for mine as well because I feel like it's this really interesting moment of reflection where I oddly feel proud a lot of the time. I don't know if that's necessarily odd, but I do feel proud a lot of the time because I reflect on a lot of things that I have gone through, a lot of things that I've made it through, a lot of the things that, I've just generally gotten the opportunity to be part of. And then also, I like to think of all the things that I've gotten to learn or, just things that I've had to go through to get to where I am now. And it's just exciting because, every year that you are getting a little bit older, you're continuously growing, you're continuously learning, you're continuously becoming, hopefully, a better version of yourself, or learning more about the things that inspire you, or learning more about the world around you. And I just think that's really special. So, in this episode, I wanted to share some of the lessons or things in general that I've learned over the years. I have a few written down, and these are not going in any specific order. I'm just going to list them in the order that I've written them down. The first thing, though, and the biggest thing probably, I don't really know if I could rank this as the biggest thing out of everything, but it is one of the biggest things for me, is just to take things day by day and knowing that taking things day by day will forever be better than rushing. What I mean by this is something that I was taught and had the chance to learn about around the time I was like 18 was the whole concept of mindfulness. And at that time, I was so intrigued by it. I was just like, this seems so cool. This seems like such a great way to be, a great state of mind to be in, a great way to live. But it's one thing to learn about it versus another thing to actually understand it and start to implement it in your life. So for me, at the age of 18, when everything's very new and you're kind of just very excited by everything going on around you, it's really easy to be like, yeah, I'm going to adopt that and put that into practice. And for some people that works. For me at the age of 18, though, it didn't really work that way. It wasn't that easy. And I found that the more pressure I was putting on myself for trying to implement it, it was oddly pushing it further and further away. I won't get into heavy specifics, but I will say that through a lot of trial and error throughout the last probably 4 or 5 years of my life, I have managed to implement mindfulness. And it was only really through experiences that made me extremely uncomfortable and moments where I kind of had to step back or pause and reassess to see what I needed. So I'll say in certain instances, obviously, the whole concept of like mindfulness as a whole is really something that's just about being very present and being very content in your present state, wherever that is, whether that's in terms of like your personal life as a whole, your career, your relationships, maybe a mesh of all of those things. Maybe it's your hobbies. It could be really any of those things. It's just a matter of being very present in yourself and in those core values that you have. For me, in the sense of wanting to practice this and implement this so badly when I was like 18, I didn't have a lot of these values formed quite yet. Versus now turning 28, I can honestly say 10 years later, I've kind of come around to learn a lot. I've gotten the chance to try so many different things, to meet so many people, and to get to do so much more than I ever thought I'd get to do. So for me, it's really interesting because in a lot of these instances, like I was mentioning, I can at times feel uncomfortable. And sometimes feeling that little bit of discomfort is really beneficial. It's very productive. It can be very positive because leaving your comfort zone in general is where a lot of the world exists. It's where a lot of new things are. It's where you can learn. It's where you can experience. It's where you can do. Sure, you can do a lot in your comfort zone as well, but oftentimes when you leave it is when you will feel uneasy, and it's kind of hard to really dictate between what is good for me in terms of feeling uneasy versus what is not good for me in terms of feeling uneasy. So, through a lot of trial and error in that sort of way, I had to learn a lot about myself, and it was a lot of discomfort. It was a lot of yes, no, maybe, I don't know, like it gets to a point sometimes where maybe you might feel a little helpless even. But through all of this sort of stuff is what really allowed me to open up and learn more about mindfulness, because before that, I was just like, yeah, I know what mindfulness is and I can do that and it's not necessarily hard to implement. No. It's not meant to be something that you can just adopt very easily. And that's very well said in terms of like any other thing that might interest you. It's very easy to read about something and to learn about something, but to truly implement it is an experience of something else. And maybe it doesn't have to be that way for everybody, but at least in my life, that's very much what it was like. So that's the first thing right there. Taking things day by day will forever be better than rushing. And just really, really practicing that sense of mindfulness in your life and how that works and is best for you. So that's number one. Number two is doing what makes you feel proud and happy, and knowing that that will always be more important than what makes others happy or proud. That one is a bit of a mouthful, and I can't lie, it's definitely something that's not easy to just implement. Again, none of the things I say in this episode are going to be things that you can necessarily wake up tomorrow and be like, oh my God, yeah, no, I feel better. Like this is 100% what I'm doing now. It's all kind of stuff that takes time, and it'll play out in its own course. It's kind of like food for thought, if anything. So, yeah, doing what makes you feel proud and happy will always be more important than what makes others happy or proud. It's, I'm just like, where do I want to start with this? There's so much with this. I think the first thing I want to say is oftentimes we have a lot of different interests, we have a lot of different goals, we have a lot of different ambitions in our own lives, and that's going to look completely different from the person beside you, from potentially your friend, your relatives, whatever it may be. It's very much something that's tailored probably just to you because it's your interests or it's your ambitions or it's your goals. So it's really interesting in the sense that a lot of the time on this journey, we can get very heavily involved in wanting to escalate these goals and take them kind of to the next level, or maybe boost ourselves in a way where we're sort of trying to achieve potentially something that's unachievable. For me, in that sort of scenario, if something is made to seem unachievable, I'm going to want to do it all the more. And I think a lot of people are that way. So it's kind of interesting because sometimes you can get to a point maybe where you thought you'd be content, and it's very easy to be like, no, I need to do more. I want to do more. Like, and now I have a lot of people that are being very supportive and kind and interested in what I'm doing or what I want to do. So now I got to do even more because that's just going to make me feel better because it's going to make other people feel better. That's not the case. Unfortunately, that's not how it goes. I will say one thing that I'll take away from that sort of lesson is that the people that are around you and love you will be proud of whatever you do and they'll be happy for you no matter what you do, regardless, because they just simply love you. And it's really interesting because somebody told me that like a few years ago, and I was just like, okay, that's kind of bullshit. It's not, though. It's really not. Maybe being down and out made me think that was bullshit because it was something that seemed a little bit too simple to comprehend. I was like, oh, well, no. Why don't the people around me want more? They just want you to do what you want to do and be the best at it that you can be. That doesn't mean drilling yourself into the ground trying to do something or pushing yourself to these unattainable levels or expectations because that's not healthy either. So that is number two. Doing what makes you feel happy and feel proud will always be much more important than what makes others happy or proud. Because again, those who love you and genuinely want to be around you will support you. So, yeah, that's the second one. The third one is that confidence opens up a new perspective on life. And this sounds very simple. A lot of people say this because confidence is something that you can't really just I think have all at once. I mean, maybe some people do, but I do think it's this thing where for most people, you learn it over time. You practice it in different ways without maybe even realizing that you're practicing it. For me, I'll be honest, again, I'll make this distinction of going back in time to when I was like 18 years old. Confidence levels, not really even at like a ground level, if I'm being honest. They were just so, so terrible. And that is oftentimes when you're in your teens or like early adulthood, it can be that way for a lot of people because you're faced with a lot of the unexpected and the unknown. And when you're kind of stepping into that, it can be very scary and overwhelming, and your confidence can kind of waver a little bit with that. In my instance, I don't think I had the confidence for it to waver, to be quite honest. But going to 28 now, I can honestly say that I think it's come a very, very long way. I'm not gonna walk out and be like, "I'm the best person in the world," because I don't think I will ever, ever say that or ever talk to anybody like that because I very much am of the mindset that everybody is at the same level. Everybody's very deserving of love, of all the good things, but we're all equal and we're all one. So for me, I can say one thing I can really take away from when I was 18 to now is just that the way that you think you should carry yourself might be different from how you actually should carry yourself. And what I mean by that is when I was in high school, a lot of the time it was very easy for me to just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to be very like low key, very chill. I don't need to worry about, whatever." I kind of wanted to be in another sense like a wallflower, if anything. For me it was very easy to be like, "Well, I just kind of want to be with my friends and not necessarily stand out of a crowd. I'm happy being part of a group. I'm happy being part of something, but I don't want to stand out." And I never felt comfortable in standing out. And I'm not going to lie, even now, still, I don't feel comfortable in standing out because I'm not one who likes the spotlight. It's not my thing. But so I think at that time, the difference in mind was just that it was so terrifying to be apart from what was comfortable in a group and what I knew versus at 28 it becomes a thing where you're a lot more solidified in who you are. In my instance, I have like very, very specific core values and things that are very important to me. And a lot of the time when I was younger, certain things like that weren't fully defined, even in the sense of like a lot of the time we have things like FOMO, right? That really can start to dictate your life too. It makes you want to be part of things even if you don't really want to be part of them. But when you're 18, you don't really know those things. When you're 28, you start to realize those things. So for me now, a lot of that concern isn't there. I think that has changed the way that I carry myself versus how I carried myself when I was 18. So there's that. I will say, along with that, I have a couple more points. One of them is that being better for yourself first is going to help you show up in all aspects of life. So, I can honestly say in my early 20s, had I known the things that I know now, I would have been showing up for a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, as opposed to how I was. At the time, I was doing as much as I could with as much as I knew and being there as much as I could for anybody that I truly loved and needed me there. Now, it's a thing where I'm still able to show up for those that I love and care for. I'm still able to be supportive, but I'm also showing up for myself because I care for and love myself, but I'm also supporting myself in the things that I need. So this might look a little bit more like, and just for some context, I'm someone who I don't know if the term's an omnivert or an ambivert, but it's a mix of an introvert and an extrovert. I can be so incredibly social, and at the same time, I can do like 2 or 3 hours of socializing like crazy, and then I'll come home and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna just sit by myself for like 2 hours because that was a lot. That felt like a lot, and I don't feel like talking. So, in that sense, when I was younger, I didn't really know entirely how to balance that. Whereas at this age, I think I've gotten a lot better with that sort of thing. So there's that. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of confidence, though, is that this can show up in your life in so many different ways. And the way that you can really even learn more about this in your own life can be in so many different ways, too. So, the first thing I'll say, and these are all things that stand out heavily to me and what kind of helped me feel more confident in myself at a younger age and even now is mostly through things like your hobbies. It could be things like your style, it could be your choice of music, or even anything across really any of that. It could be a blend of so many different things. And I think that that's really, really unique and special to each person. And, it's something that if it makes you feel good, if it's something that cheers you up, if it's something that makes you feel better, that's all that matters because ultimately it matters to you. It means something to you. It carries a weight of sorts. But again, the reason I bring up these sort of things is because they're all very unique and personal to you. Even if you're not into the same hobbies as I am, you have hobbies that mean a lot to you. We might not be into the same style. You might not be into keeping up with fashion or style or any of those things at all, but those are things that matter to you in a different way. There's also the whole thing of like, what kind of music do you like? What kind of movies do you like to watch? It could be any of that kind of stuff. And I think the magic in that is that whatever it is, regardless of the differences between my interests and that or yours, you can really hone in on that. It brings you a lot of joy. It holds a lot of weight for you in your heart. So if that makes you feel good, then really just enjoy that, celebrate that, be super appreciative of that to whatever degree you want to be. So that's that on confidence. That's all I can say about that. The last thing I'll say about lessons though is one that's pretty well known I think for a lot of people, and this is something I see a lot of TikToks about. This is something a lot of people talk about online, but it's just that people may last a season or a lifetime. What I'll say about this is that sometimes having a friendship come to a close can hurt, but in retrospect, not all of them are meant to last forever. And that can be all kinds of relationships, not even just friendships. But sometimes they're not all meant to last forever. I think no matter what age you are, that's always like a bit of a shitty thing. Whether you're, again, 18 or 28, there's a good chance that not all of the exact same people that were around you at a younger age are still going to be around you at the current age that you may be at. And at the same time, though it can be a little bit sad, it can also be a really wonderful thing where you can look back on memories of anything that you have with this person or with these people and know that those will always be there. And that even though things had changed, or maybe, we've grown up and grown apart, that there was something there that was good at that point in time. And that at that point in your life, it had brought light into your life and vice versa, hopefully. So I think that's a huge thing. But yeah, just knowing that sometimes when you grow up, sometimes that means growing apart. And that's not even just from other people. But like I said, when you grow in some way, you're kind of shedding older versions of yourself as well, or you're learning or you're building upon yourself. You can really look at it in a number of different ways. But I do think that as you grow up, you grow apart. And that could even be from hobbies, like I mentioned with the confidence thing. Like there's going to be a good chance, like some of the music I listened to when I was like 13, I'm not listening to anymore. So it's like, in that sense, you're kind of shedding old things. I will say, genuinely, I'm sure there's so much more, but when I sat down to kind of reflect on this and make this list, those are the main few that came to mind. And I decided to just kind of like go with that for this type of episode because I really wanted to focus on this for this episode and make it a special one. So that's all of that. If you've listened up until this point of this episode or of the show, please just know I appreciate you so, so much. You're amazing. I hope your day is as great as you are. And again, I thank you for listening. If you want to connect or ever reach out, please feel free to do so on Instagram at the Trying Times Podcast. I'd love to hear from you and chat with you a little bit more. So, yeah, that's all for now. We'll chat again soon, okay? Bye.